Hello and welcome. Today we're painting geraniums, one of my favorite summer flowers. So get your brushes, your paints together, and this is a really easy tutorial, very loose, very fluid. I'm starting out, I'm using my Etcher watercolor brush, and I'm using my practice paper that I always use, which is Blick. Um, this one is a cold press, not a hot press. So I was feeling like I wanted the color to run just a little bit more. So when I start out with geraniums, the mistake that I've made in the past is to start out too dark. So you should start out with a very light, watery wash of a very light red. I am using a little bit of I can never say that, quinacridone rose and some cad red mixed in there. I have been painting geraniums for the last couple hours. And so now I'm going in with just a very light wash of cad red. And if you want to sketch where you want your flowers, I would just put a very light pencil circle where you want your geraniums. So I prefer to just kind of start. And my inspiration was the photo that I showed at the beginning, my geraniums that have spent winter all inside, all of winter inside in the atrium. And now I am getting ready to take them outside because it's just warm enough. But the nurseries are all full of geraniums right now. So if you are looking for models for your paintings, now is the time to get in there and get all of the beautiful different varieties. This is just the plain, my favorite classic bright red geranium. I love all the other geraniums, but this one is like a staple. So after putting in the flowers, and you don't want to do perfect circles. They look very circular, but you know they've got these beautiful four-petaled flowers. They're kind of like a hydrangea in that they're a huge ball of little beautiful flowers. And so I like to start mine very loose and mimicking a circle, but not exactly. This one that I'm painting now is faced to the right a little bit. I have a tiny one up top because a lot of geraniums will have the little tiny blooms before they turn into big blooms. And now I'm adding a little bit of the cad red mixed with an ultramarine blue, so that there is a purple on the shadowy side. So get your brush and pick up, not real dark, it's still a watery wash of a purple. And I put it down on the bottom of the flowers and at little spots throughout the flower, because if you look at a geranium, it's not all in the light. You've got to make these shadow spots, which makes a big difference at the end. And you can let this dry. I prefer to do this whole thing wet on wet. I like the look that it gives. It's a whole different look if you let this dry and do petals wet on dry. This one is completely wet on wet, which makes it a quick, easy painting as well. So then I go in with a darker, this is a cad red deep, and you can use any darker red that you have. You could use an alizarin for this, although I like the cad dark red. Um, I just like the look that it gives with this. So that's what I'm using, and that's the color that I have on my palette. They're all Daniel Smith paints in this particular palette. So then I go in and I'm dropping in bits of the darker red. And you just really little petals here and there. There are some spots where I'll do four petals, but you don't want to make it look robotic or like four petal, four petal, four petal. It's more dropping in little dashes, because if you look at a geranium, there are petals facing in different directions. They're not all facing front. So try to vary the direction of your blossoms here. And I'm keeping the lighter area, I make them a little more dense with the darker red on the bottom. I will put some at the top, but the top, I'm reserving some space at the top for the cad red light, which is the real pop of color. Now this one on the bottom is a little bit drier, but it still has a lot of, it's still moving the paint enough for me. And you want to try to, the mistake I've made in the past with geraniums is not leaving enough space in between these petals. If you go too dense or too close to each other, then you don't get the beautiful depth in the geranium. So I know when I get going painting petals, I can go crazy. And then all of a sudden I have this bright red one value blob because I didn't leave space in between. So leave yourself some space in between your reds. And this one is a little too round. Sometimes you look at it, step back and go, that's a little too round. So brought it down in a few places. And that's looking good. I'm happy with the progress on that for right now. Kind of looks like coral in an aquarium. That's kind of cool. If you left it at this point, it could be coral in an ocean scene. But we will press on, and I'm going to get some sap green and put in some little stems. And then a little bit of serpentine green I mix in. It's got a little more blue in it. I love the leaves on the geranium that they're also kind of shaped like a geranium, a cute little fluffy circle. So those are fun. And now I'm going to go back in, clean your brush real well if you're using the same brush between the green and the red, because they are opposite ends of the color wheel and you'll get a yucky gray. Not a yucky gray, sometimes a lovely gray. But now I'm going in and just doing various petals. Some 3 petals, some 4 petals, some 2 petals, and try to bounce around the page a little bit. First of all, because it's drying pretty rapidly. It's nice and warm today. So I want to get some color laid in on each of my geraniums, especially this one at the bottom. That seems to be drying quicker than the other ones. Maybe it wasn't wet enough when I started. I don't know. But take your brush and work your way around with Cad Red Light. This brush, this etcher brush, is a little bit stiffer. I prefer using this when I'm doing geraniums to something like the Neptune. The Neptune is too soft. It's great for other things like washes, but you want a brush with a little bit of stiffness when you're doing this. I get frustrated if the brush is too mushy. It doesn't necessarily give me the shape I want on these leaves. So now I'm coming back in with some dark Quin Rose and adding some blue to it to deepen up. The bottom needs to be a little darker. You can see as it dries, it got really light, and the shadowy area needs to be a little more shadowy. So I'm going to drop in some shadow down here. And a nice pinky purple really kind of mimics, looks the best that I've seen on geraniums. More of a purpley bluish red. You can play around with it You can use, I find on these bright red flowers that the purple is a little better. You can use a darker red, but then it just looks like too much of a blob of red. So the adding the blue or using a purple on the bottom really helps. I think it looks very nice with these red flowers. And we'll go around each of the flowers. I love geraniums. They're such a happy flower. And I actually really love painting geraniums and bouncing around from flower to flower. They just are so perky and beautiful. So now I'm going, because the dark, cad red dark has blended so much, I'm going back in with some darker cad red deep in the lower area and then going across the top with the cad red light. And you can kind of dance back and forth with this. And this is one of those little tiny flowers that geraniums have. I also love the little red things that come off the bottom. I didn't do that in this, where they have the little green stem that comes off. Um, I'll be doing more geraniums for sure. I'm going to try some of the Martha Washington ones that have the beautiful magenta and white in them. A little more tricky, but very beautiful. So keep going in with your cad red light. Now this one, go in deeper with the cad red deep as you go around in the area of shade and the underside, which is also shaded. I'm going to add some deeper purple to the bottom of this. And I'm still working hard to leave some spaces in here. If you overwork it, you can always go in and add some water and pull it back out, but I'm trying to get these right from the start. Now, I'd like to put some of these beautiful fluffy leaves in, using a little bit of sap green, and then I've got serpentine green, and I've got like a bluish green, a phthalo green. So any light green and bluish green color that you have will work. And I don't mind that the pink is still mixed in there, because a lot of times with geranium leaves, they actually have a touch of pink or a touch of red in the leaves, which is another thing I really like about geraniums, depending on the variety. But I will leave a little bit of the red in the brush, and I think it adds a nice color to this. And some more green. And again, I just like, they almost look like paint palettes. They're with little flowers. They're round with little scalloped edges. And some of them have, I added a little bit of red in there to keep the red in the leaves and not have it completely disappear. And now, rather than, I didn't want to paint these in a pot. I was not happy with the way my pots were turning out before this, so I thought I would just do like a montage of geraniums. So I'm just going to put the leaves. If you look at geraniums and you look at my actual geraniums in the beginning from my um, from my house, the leaves are down on the stem. They have, and granted, they were a little leggy, but um, a lot of times the leaves fall further down on the plant. I love it. It almost sometimes is like a blanket at the bottom of the geraniums, with the geranium standing straight up and tall out of the leaves. And so when I paint geraniums, I put the leaves down quite a bit. And I'm just wanting some color runs in here. I want the focus to be the geraniums, so I don't want to go crazy doing a lot with the leaves, but I want some suggestion of the green. But I don't want them competing for attention with my geraniums. So put another leaf in, because who said what? You're never supposed to have even numbers of things. I'm not sure what that is, but people say that in plants, have 1, 3, 5, 7, unless you're going for perfect symmetry. Um, they say to do odd numbers of things. So let's see if I end up with an odd number. I have 7, and then 8. Watch me end up with an even number of leaves. Well, 8 there. And then you want a darker green in between these green leaves, not just to have them. We want to put some depth into these. So I don't want to do dark green leaves in the background. Again, I don't want it to be eye-catching, but I want to push these leaves forward, and putting dark around here is helpful. Putting dark around the light leaves will help push them to the front of your painting rather than have them just kind of floating there. And a little more dark green. So just putter around with your leaves. And again, you want them to be different shapes. You don't want them all the same shape, or that's going to look funny. I'm going to wipe out some of this hard line that I'm getting here. I don't want that. And the stems kind of hide behind these and attach, so I'm not going to add those. And we'll put just the suggestion of some leaves back here. Thicken these a little bit. The stems are not real thick on geraniums. They're not like daffodils, so keep them on the skinnier side. And now I'm going to put some drops of water in where I think I might have overworked it. And if you put too much in, it's going to make it look funky. So I goofed up there and put too big of a drop in. I end up painting back over it, but little drops of water will cause your color to spread and give you some more areas of light in here. And I like the effect that it gives with the paint. So you can go back in. Now that's where that got a little big and a little bit of an eyesore. So you can go back in with more paint on top of it. It's not completely dry. It's still moving a bit underneath it, but you can always drop a little more paint in there to make it not quite so obvious. And I actually like the way that this ended up. So a little bit more cad red light. Bring out that bright, bright red. Now you see as these are drying how pale they're getting. So geraniums are definitely, you're going to spend a few minutes layering, layering, and layering. So that's why it's good to have 5 flowers. You can go from flower to flower. By the time you get back up to the next flower, some drying has occurred, but not too much. I think it just, this is a 20-minute demonstration, so this moved just enough, I felt, to make it really beautiful at the end. And some more cad red light. And one thing I struggle with, I don't know if you do, is it's my inclination to cover the white spots in there, but I have to force myself to work around those and leave those when I am painting in my last layers. You're going to want to leave some of those peek through spots. and put your color where there is already color. And again, I'm really forcing myself to leave that lighter red peeking through. It makes a huge difference in the finished flowers. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I really enjoyed it, and I'll be doing a lot more geraniums in the future. If you do this, please share it on Facebook, Creating with Christine. We have a group of nice ladies over there that share their artwork, or nice painters. Thank you for joining me. If you click like and subscribe, it helps me to share my content, and I really, really, really appreciate you watching the video. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.